Then and now, we got the crown when we rock the town. Hot sound, keep us breaking ground while we chillin' lounge. 3 generations, black nerd soldiers, podcast snipers trying to pop culture. Allegedly, haters trying to talk, but a pedigree in rare form.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Then and Now podcast. I am your co-host, Captain Diesel, and I am joined, as usual, with my other two co-hosts, Lulu G and Professor E, King of the Comics. How are y'all doing, my brothers? Like hermanos.
Not too bad.
Hanging in there, man. Hanging in there. I didn't realize my shirt was gonna match my my graphics card, not the graphics, the lettering bar for my name. Should have planned that better.
Damn near perfectly, actually. That's crazy. Guys, this is gonna be a dope episode.
Celtics up 3-0. You know.
You said what?
Celtics up 3-0. You know.
That's terrible. Why'd you bring that up? Why'd you bring that up?
This is the dark timeline. That doesn't exist. We're covering a couple topics today, guys. Obviously, we're going to be covering and discussing some of the stuff that's going on and it's out. But first and foremost, we wanted to start with a live reaction to a short film, about 4 minutes, 56 seconds, of a Walmart short film that was based around Father's Day and more specifically Black fathers during Father's Day. Shout out to our guy, Chris Miles. He recommended this to us and asked us to, create some content around it to kind of give it a look over.
And just give it an extra bit of context too. This is a cartoon made by Martian Blueberry. So the team that made Boondocks and Black Dynamite also worked on this as well. And it's another project of theirs that we get to see.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and start the show off by getting into that, guys.
In a world where little hearts face big challenges and growing pains loom like villains around every corner.
Definitely recognize that voice.
It's a big voice.
There's a league of strong and mighty black men ready to answer the call, no matter where they are.
I wonder how many Walmart customers right here.
I'm so curious for
what they're doing.
Come to Walmart to make
right, yeah.
I'll have to tell you my real answer when we're not live.
The thing is, some of this is metaphor, but then some of this things seem literal, like the mind powers.
Who are these men? They are a band of fathers with the skills to transform tantrums into tea parties and meltdowns into epic dance-offs. Their capes, cleverly disguised as fanny packs and cargo shorts strapped across dad bods. They are the League of Black and Unlimited Dads.
Most standard looking.
A couple lines, they raising girls and boys. Supermen, caretakers, the kings of the boys. Tear wipers, the crime fighters. The grill lighters, the darkness, the shine brightest. The game winners.
I don't know why this music sounds like something that would be played in like Static Shock.
It feels like, because I'm pretty confident that's the fucking, that's Mr. Virgil Hawkins' father's voice.
Dad from Static Shock.
It is.
And then you seen that one dad that had the gear boots, had the gear shoes.
Yeah, the gear.
Everybody make mistakes, it's all love. Paying attention, patience, the best hug. Papa Bear and Bear Cubs.
Look at that theme song, Static Shock with Little Romeo.
Yeah, it's like season 3, I think.
For the first dance. Put a smile to your face like Ella Kazam. You gotta give a hand to your old man.
I feel you, big dog. I feel you. Sucks.
is it safe to say he won't stand for this?
I'm getting up vibes right now.
What kind of vibes?
Up.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah, in the league of days. Hey.
They're the unsung heroes of play dates and the sultans of parent-teacher conferences across the land.
Yeah, in the league of days. Hey, in the league of days.
These aren't just any heroes.
Get the word death.
In the league of days.
They are the proud, the powerful, the League of Black and Unlimited Dads.
When it comes to being a father, I'm unlimited. Sliding nose, you know that it got a remedy. From a neighborhood, pull up when I cook out. League of dads, everybody better look out. White socks with the sandals when I two-step. 100 man with the plane in the minivan. Drop the kids off in the morning and get them.
That was cool. That was dope.
So is that a commercial? That's a long commercial.
No, it's just a short. It's just
It's
a
a
little
short-
animated short
yeah,
that they
it's a
wanted
short
they wanted
animation.
commissioned.
I got you.
It's I'm not gonna say it's disingenuous because I don't know. It could be a genuine thing that somebody in the like upper management like wanted to do, but it obviously does seem like a little bit of a marketing ploy. Like kind of show people like, hey, we're diverse and we care about Black fathers here at Walmart.
Of course, that's the most obvious. yeah, exactly. And
but I mean, keeping this in the scope of the quality of like the short itself, I think it was pretty solid. Like very recognizable voice acting, really dope soundtrack. Animation was solid enough. Overall, I think it was pretty solid. But yeah, it does feel like yay, Black
pandering.
Yeah, shop over at store over there. Come to Walmart.
It's yeah, it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you said, barring the actual quality of the product itself, yeah, there's some blatant pandering. The one thing that caught me off guard though was the name of the group is the League of Black and Unlimited Fathers. There's unlimited. They're all over the places. So watch out.
Like,
watch it.
we hijacking the stigma back. Like all Black dads exist.
Okay? Yeah, that's more so what that is.
Everywhere
on the aspect of Black fathers not being a, I guess, common thing. Because again, you don't see this much. When you look at media in general, it's a lot of, especially when it comes to rap or a lot of things that in Black media, it's the whole. I came up from the mud and I didn't have my father around and it was a single mother. That's the story you hear in a lot of different stories, fictional or otherwise. So kind of getting towards the forward-facingness, I guess, of seeing Black fathers being an influence in their children's lives, their communities' lives. It's something dope to see, and when it's done well, it's an amazing thing. I just recently spoke about it in a static video with I can't remember Virgil's dad's name, but Mr. Hawkins, I guess, for lack of a better term. And just seeing how not only he was an influence on Static as a growing superhero, but like his entire community respected him. And you don't have to be a father or like a civil rights leader, I guess, to that extent, but just being present in your kids' lives and maybe surrounding kids is something that's dope to see in media like this. Especially somebody, again, that did not have the best relationship with my own biological father. I mean, I had father figures in my life, but it's dope to see stuff like this. It's dope to see it. Especially done at this quality too, because it felt very. It didn't feel like, you know how a lot of times you see media in ads where they have Black faces on them, but they don't feel like they were made by Black people.
Right, that's true.
This feels like it was made by somebody Black who understood Black parenting, Black kids, and Black people in general. What the kind of things we do and how we speak, how we operate, how we go about life.
Yeah, it's clear, like you said, it's clearly made by Black folks. It did remind me a little bit of the Proud Family, but obviously like Cliff Notes version, like because as opposed to it definitely was, like you said, it was much more kind of getting to the point with this, and it was cool to see. And they had different types of dads from different walks of life dealing with different types of problems with their kids. It was. I wish to God it was that dealing with my girlfriend's. He's 15 months or 16 months now. Goddamn. I wish it was that easy to like make them happy that fast. Like it's okay. Let me just touch your shoulder. Okay, now we are fine. It's not. I promise you. But yeah, I get it. You gotta. It still had a good message. So I can't knock that at all.
And I think that was just a testament to how much they knew their children. Like I feel like, again, Eve is probably the closest thing to a father out of the group here. But when you learn your kid and you learn what makes them tick, I guess, you know what makes them happy. It's a little bit easier to flip that switch to kind of get them out of that mode. Especially when they're younger, for sure. Older, you have other worries in the world besides getting a boo boo or failing a math test. But when you're younger like that, you kind of know what makes your kids happy. Like, hey, you want some ice cream, or you want to watch cartoons or games or whatever it is. And that is a testament to how present you are, that you know your children that well.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing right there. You hit the nail dead in the head there, Dev. Being present. Being present means a lot to kids. As a father figure, being around means a lot to kids. So there's no, whatever you do, the best thing you can do is show up, and be there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and this commercial does show that, because also one of the things that showed, the short film showed, was that whatever they were doing, they dropped what they were doing to go support their kids, which is big,
Which I think too, a big thing to that same point though, like you saw them all usually leaving their job. That's another stigma. Either you didn't have the black father around as a single mother household, or the father was just working all the time and wasn't really able to be as present socially because he was just working nonstop. Very similar to if you guys watched Everybody Hates Chris, it was kind of somewhat similar to that. Julius was around for a lot. He was around for parts of the show, but it was very much so shown that like a lot of the times he just wasn't as present for a lot of the social things that Chris was going through because he was working 15 jobs at a time.
yeah. That show's still good. But yeah, good point though. Good point.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in this, a lot of undertones that were dope to see made by black people. Shout out to Martian Blueberry. Between this and the Negro League Baseball short they did, the documentary, they 2 for 2 for me. I'm waiting for them to have like a legit project done soon.
Yeah, another series.
They're capable of some dope stuff, especially with the quality of animation, voice acting, music. Like they're up to some dope stuff. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, another full series. They were saying before, they were in talks to redo season 2 of Promised Neverland. So hopefully that's coming through.
This is stupid.
It couldn't be worse. It literally couldn't be worse. I
thought he was about to be so serious.
Nah, I am saying. Otis, tell me you wouldn't watch a Martian Blueberry version of season 2. Never Promised Neverland.
Do not feed into this foolishness.
I mean, they never actually did season 2 of Promised Neverland. Like they skipped to like season 8. Like they went to the end of the show instead of like actually like continue to progress through the story. So yeah, it does make sense.
I ain't made it take it off the rails there, sir.
Moving forward, again, you guys want to give this a review? I guess it's a short, but I mean we can kind of review.
Sure, we can review shorts about it. You can review anything.
Yeah, if I had to score this, I mean, just for the enjoyability of it, I'd probably give it like a 7.5, 8. Like again, like the animation was something that I can resonate with. The messaging I understood. The music hit. I don't have too many complaints about it from what we got. Like, nice moment with the father and his son in the wheelchair. Like, showing that like it's okay to have all types of family. Like, I mean, unfortunately, not everybody is as fully able as possible, but you can still be a person and still have like connection with your family. I think stuff like that is important.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'll give it a 9 for me. I think I try to, at least nowadays, I try to grade things off of what their goal was, whether it be comedy, action, whatever it is. And from this, obviously from the name alone, the main focus here was, I guess, not really spreading awareness, but I guess giving a focus and a reminder of the presence of a black father and how important it is. And I think it accomplished that task with flying colors to me, from presentation wise, the way they did it, a lot of it nonverbal as well. I think it's dope to me. I'd probably give it a 9. I'd watch this a couple more times. It's only like 40 minutes too, so like it's not that big of a hassle either.
Yeah, I mean, I probably give it like an 8. It's definitely enjoyable as well. Is part of it was, like you said, is kind of understanding what was the reason behind them making it with the commission to kind of celebrate, black fathers or what have you. But I enjoyed seeing it. I enjoyed seeing it kind of come together. Obviously, how it ended in the barbershop with them kind of all being together. One thing is, it would have been kind of cool if they had chosen one of the fathers, kind of spend a little more time just showing him dealing with the situation a bit, as opposed to showing 4 different scenarios altogether. However, that being said, I still enjoyed it. I still like seeing the idea that there are the league of, like they said, unlimited black fathers, which is a dream scenario. Like you said, we've seen way too many. It's way too often that that's not the case, whether it be in real life and in fiction, that black fathers are not around. So I'm glad to see something celebrating that and kind of showing that actually they do exist. So yeah.
Well, guys, moving forward into further show topics. Before we move into anything else, I know, Ethan, you brought up a topic you had in mind that you wanted to discuss. You want to go ahead and let the people know what that is?
Of course. So one thing is, at this day and age, we've had some series that have come out that have been, as opposed to the whole binge structure where it's everything, the whole season's dropped right here, go watch all right now. It's come out where it's been paced out on a weekly basis. Even with The Boys, which dropped today, it only dropped the first 3 episodes, and the rest of them coming out, once a week. It's the same thing with Acolyte, or even with my favorite show of the year so far, X-97. It was just 1 episode a week. I think they came up with 2 originally, then they had several afterwards. But I feel like in some ways binge culture has it's lessened the impact of a work of art. It's kind of diminished the returns. It's kind of desensitized us to the quality that we're getting. I feel like we should have things paced out more. We give us a chance to process it more, a chance to actually to digest it and think about it, discuss it a little bit more. And that's why TV, worked better back in the day, as opposed to everything being shoved in your face and being disposable that quickly. So what is your take on things? I know, Dev, obviously you grew up in an era much where appointment television wasn't as prevalent. You've been around more probably in the binge era, so to speak. I grew up much more when it was around.
I saw a lot of it, especially with Cartoon Network, because they would have like big events for stuff, especially for like the Clone Wars episodes and things of that nature. Because they were again, it was a cool. I think as somebody again that's seen both sides of it, I think that I'd agree with you in regards to. I'm not gonna say it made it less prevalent, but I think it showed, at least recently, the importance of it from a community aspect. Because I think originally when the binge stuff started off, it was really just people getting a chance to just watch it whenever they wanted, as much as they wanted off rip. But what you were missing was that community aspect of, oh, I watched the new episode and I'm going to school the next day to talk about it. Or I'm watching it and I'm posting about it in this group chat. If it's just you and you're not invested in the series, or you're just watching to review it, or you're just watching it to watch it, you would probably prefer the binge stuff because you're just not on the internet and you're not as sociable when it comes to discussing content. You just watch it for the enjoyment of it. But people like us and maybe some other nerdy people that like talking about the nerdy stuff we watch, having it episode to episode, to your point, is vital because it gives time to digest. I think it's also better for the type of reviews you get, especially from YouTube content creators, because a lot of times people are rushing to be the first people to get content out. And I personally feel like if it's not a movie, I don't think you can accurately give a full review of a show watching it all in one session.
No.
And trying to review it like right after, because you didn't let it sit. I personally, like, we've talked about a show or a movie on here, and then I've gone 2 years and watched it again and didn't do a full 180 on how I felt about it, but I enjoyed it or hated it a little bit more after getting time to kind of think about the things and the movie or cinematic aspects of it, directorial or otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Otis East.
Yeah, I mean, I think that coming out on a week-to-week basis enhances the longevity of project being relevant. Like, I mean, I think we mentioned that a little while back with like one of the issues why Castlevania would never get the attention that it might deserve, is like, they always just drop it all in one batch. People would be excited about it for that week, and then you would not hear about it again until the next season comes around, as opposed to something like, currently, like, we can go to the big one. I always mention, but like currently, Kaiju number 8 is the most popular running series. And I mean, with it coming out weekly, people are readdressing it on that weekly basis. When they see it, it gets more legs and more attention overall, because it has 12 to 24 weeks of being in people's minds and their rotation, as opposed to just that one. when it was on people's minds. You know, so
Yeah, exactly. The anime, obviously, doing the seasons now, it is like that. It's staying, like you said, it's staying much more in people's minds. It's staying up on the tip of their tongues. It's staying very much, like you said, in the public consciousness. And there's a conversation about these things. And I think also one thing that hit me too was with X-Men 97. I don't know that season would have hit as hard as it did if it wasn't spaced out, if it wasn't weekly. We've all seen episode number 5. If you haven't seen it, I won't go into any specifics or spoilers necessarily, but
people
being
die.
able to people it was a clap factory, put it that way. But
clap factory is crazy. No, Diddy. Diddy.
but the impact.
You just invented a new porno channel just now.
Clap factory.
But the impact wouldn't have hit nearly as hard if we couldn't essentially all mourn together the way we did. I mean, it lasted. It hit harder because of the way it was structured. Say, for example, if it had been a binge thing that they basically all at once, Charlie could have watched all of the whole season the first day, and then Otis Eggman had finished it for a couple of weeks. We have no idea why he's feeling the way he is about the show. It's like, what happened? So it's kind of, I 100% understand why there is binge culture, like you said, Dev. There are people that don't have the time to kind of wait each week or have families they think about. So it's much easier to have have video on demand essentially whenever they need it for all the episodes, of course. But I do miss the community aspect. I do miss being able to discuss things with people in detail without having to worry about my brain turned to tapioca after an entire 8 to 10 hours of content.
And what I will say too, one thing that people, at least a lot of people forgot about, which is something that a lot of directors and writers more so directors took advantage of when it comes to these shows, is using that weekly release date to build more suspense and excitement for each episode.
Yeah.
The biggest example I can point to is something like The House of the Dragon, where it felt like every single, or Game of Thrones a little bit to an extent as well, where every episode damn near ended on a cliffhanger that left you excited about what was going to happen next week. They made sure to end it on something epic every week so that you're always, every week, we know you're checking in midnight when this shit drops. We know
right.
Because you want to know what's going on. You have to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I see a lot more shows doing that now in regards to taking advantage of that. Because I saw old television back in the day do it to a lesser extent where they did it, but it just didn't hit as much. I guess maybe because of the way the how popular the show was, the writing, whatever it was. Shows are taking a lot more advantage of that now, I feel like.
Yeah, well, shows used to be much more episodic too. They weren't like now. They're much more of a continued story going on through the whole run. Also, shows now typically obviously are 8 to 10 episodes as opposed to 22 long run. But again, another show that did it great this season. This was this season. Jujutsu Kaisen. Every episode pretty much ended on somewhat of a cliffhanger or made you want to come back for more for one reason or another. Did a really good job with that. Kaiju number 8 isn't necessarily every episode ending on a cliffhanger. Some kind of do, but it's set up in a way that the structure is you are getting more and more invested with each passing episode. Like I told you before, I wasn't the biggest fan necessarily of the first few episodes, but I got drawn in more and more over time. Like the last 3 got me really good. So it's
Is that too, man?
Yeah. So it's I guess it hit me when I was just kind of looking at some content recently. It's like there's a different way that writers and them used to kind of create stories. And because I know I've been talking to Dev at nauseum how important tension and suspense is. Like you just brought up suspense, by having good cliffhangers in your stories, it can make a lot of suspense, even keep the suspense going between over a course of a week or whatnot. So
you guys have anything else about that particular topic you want to speak on before we switch it up? So going forward, I guess I have another idea for a discussion. That question I kind of wanted to throw out because we've all at this point watched American Fiction. We had Professor E hop into the chat and gush about this film. It's a film that I told myself I was going to watch at some point when it was going to release, and I just had stuff piling up and I never got to see it until recently. And then Lelouch V watched it, I think like last night, you said, or yesterday night. It brings forth a conversation or sparks the topic of conversation that I want to kind of go over. I've had this discussion on like Tapping No Capping and other podcasts before. I don't think we've discussed it here, but in regards to the type of Black representation we get in media or lack thereof, because to kind of get into American fiction for people that aren't aware of what it essentially follows the tale of this author who is very much so, I guess, a part of the black bourgeoisie, for lack of a better term, where he's a very educated man. He comes from a family that is very educated, and they have a lot of education in the household. And he essentially is an author, and he's wrote these books that he tries to make it very prevalent in regards to him not have his art not having a race attached to it. He wants to be just a great author, not a great black author. And he saw a lot of these black authors writing stories that were essentially pandering to, I can't even say black people, because it made it, like, from what the film showed, a lot of white people were eating that shit up. And he jokingly makes the most ghetto hood hyper fixated. I can't even describe how fucking wild this story was, because they had like Keith David as a deadbeat dad drinking a 40 in a living room. It was dope. It was a thing. So you get the idea of it. And that book, his joke book, goes viral, and he makes a lot of money from it and whatnot.
What's the name of the book? What's the name of the book there, Dev?
It was my.
No. It had that. Yeah, had that.
Well, it was pathology at first.
Pathology.
But it's called pathology.
Yeah. I forgot about that. He named it. Yeah. It was the whole thing. And it brings forth the question of the types of black representation we get within media. Because I've, in exhaustion, spoken about black representation. It's been a big prevalent part of my own video essays, a lot of the conversations we've had on this podcast and different generations of the podcast. Mm-hmm. But we've never really broken down the specifics of it.
Also, because it's something that Otis not talk about all the time, and I think it's more off mic actually. It's just the idea. It's not just representation, but also how the the powers that be want to see us. It's not just that how we're shown, but how they want us to be kind of in a certain box. And this movie deals with that a lot, so to speak.
So that brings forth the conversation in regards to how you guys feel about the different types of media we get. Because obviously there's a good like subgenre of black movies where you get like the paid in fulls, the Dead Poet, I said Dead Poet Society, the Dead Presidents.
The President.
And different films like
different it's like it's black people in there.
I don't think this is.
I think there's one black kid. I think in the class.
Yeah, as far as one random one.
Well, we have I guess hood films. Something feels wrong about me calling them those. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, hood class is a better word for it. A lot of those I've seen a handful of them. A lot of them I haven't seen. I have a personal thing. I try not to watch a lot of super negativity when it comes to black people and seeing us do negative stuff to one another. Mm-hmm. It kind of just makes me feel uneasy. Yeah. Sometimes I don't care if the show is good enough in quality, but a lot of times, like a lot of the BMF stuff and Power, I just kind of stray away from. I still haven't watched Snowfall because of that a lot. Like I have a thing about that.
Oh, really?
I started at some point, but yeah.
That's right, but Snowfall is like legitimate. Like
so,
that is.
Yeah. And I see what you're, because at the end of the day, Franklin Saint is a drug dealer. Spoiler alert, yeah. He's a drug dealer. He is fair.
He's like unapologetically fucking up his community, and it's like
he is doing that too. But I think what it is,
it's a true story of like how it really happened in that time period. Like,
yeah, yeah.
And my whole thing is like I understand it's a true story, and I think sometimes that with these studios masking something, not masking as a true story because it is a true story, but using that as the guise. It's a dramatized story. Using that as the guise to get that kind of story out. My whole idea is there's a lot of black stories that involve a lot of excellent black people. Something like Malik and the Bee is a prime example. That are
Keela and the Bee.
That's Malik and the Bee, yeah. Keela and the Bee that's based in positivity. You can find all these different types of black people that done amazing things. Me being here at Morehouse now, there's like on one of the alleys of the school is a mural, like a huge mural on a wall, and it has all these different black people that went to Morehouse and did these amazing things, from athletes to creators, directors like Spike Lee and other different types of things. I have this weird thing where I'm just, okay, can we get more than this type of black story? I understand that you need it sometimes for people to feel like they can relate to it, but sometimes I feel like people self-internalize this kind of content, and I'm not going to say replicate it because then that sounds like the parents talking about kids with violent video games, but I feel like you see it so much, you just start to take it as the norm, and versus understanding this thing is fiction.
Hmm. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I mean, there are, of course, there's all kinds of stories of black excellence out there from one reason or another. I'm still waiting for the Oprah Winfrey movie. It seemed for me, if you know her story, where she came from literally nothing, living in dirt and under dirt, and then became, of course, one of the most powerful people in the planet. It'd be a great story to tell. But we do get a lot of the stories where it's kind of like the biggest thing is number one thing that sells, of course, is sex. Number two thing that sells is crime. It is what it is. So it's kind of like, yeah, we could see a lot more stories of black excellence. We've made some of those. We have those kind of stories. We have the biopics of different things. We had Hidden Figures, which did well in theaters, of course. But what does better, of course, 10 times out of 10 is like American Gangster or Snowfall, like stories that show Boys in the Hood, Men's Society. Those kinds of pictures, those kinds of productions. For some reason, people just enjoy them more. They want to see more of those. Even I'm not sure where it falls as far as the Medea, the Tyler Perry stuff. If the Chitlin theater circuit, if that's considered black excellence, or if that's considered, I don't know what that is, but people enjoy that too. So yeah, there are different audiences out there for these different types of content. But again, it boils down to what is it that we ourselves want to create? How do we ourselves want to be seen and represented? And how is it that the powers that be, that in Hollywood or what have you, or even just the general public that are watching these things, how do they want to see us? Do they want to keep us in a certain kind of, from a certain viewpoint? What if they do start seeing us as being, heaven forbid, as excellent as they are, or being hyper intelligent, or being capable? Well, gosh, that's horrific. So it's the same idea. It's kind of like, that's why in this movie American Fiction, it shows that one author kind of figured out the games like, y'all want, in order for me to sell a book, I have to sound like I literally have to be considered a fugitive from the law with a sixth grade education, using calling my book "fuck" to make money off it, and it was nominated. Got one of the best, the best writers award. It's like, that's crazy stuff, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious like how they want us to be portrayed, because that's usually what's popular. Like, I mean, when it comes to the music, when it comes to the series, the television, the content around us that makes the most money is going to be, us doing something negative, whether it be, drugs, violence, sexual. I mean, it's kind of like, is what it is there to a degree. I think the best black content that you get is the ones that are aware of that and find ways to nuance it in a way to showcase a message or a content piece that is timeless, or just permanently relevant. Because I feel like a lot of our struggle since the beginning of media has been the same. So I mean, all of them kind of ring true, no matter what time period you're in. But you're not gonna, like, I don't think we're at a place where you're going to see the level of support behind, like if we did a Black Star Wars, like you're not gonna see the companies like fund that the way you would see, like, I don't know, Snowfall 2. You know what I'm saying? Like, just
part of me, the more and more I see stuff. Have you guys? There's a show on YouTube called, well, a couple of them called. One's called Hell of a Boss. Another one's called Has Been Hotel. That they're like, if you've gotten any con recently, you've seen those cosplays everywhere, and those started off as like independent animation shows that were just put on YouTube, and then Amazon came and bought them and put more money behind the actual shows. I've seen that, and there's a couple other stories of that nature that showcase people creating some kind of independent show or short film or movie on YouTube or whatever independent platform it is. SoundCloud and the music area is another one, where people are creating the type of things they want to create, and then these studios see, and all they need to see is that people watch it, and then they go and put money behind it. And the personal difficulty I always have is when I see things like that, I question why. Well, I know why to an extent why we as Black people aren't ever unified as far as like the type of things we want to see. Because some people like seeing the crime shit; they don't really care too much. My grandfather was like that. He watched the fuck out of BMF. He loved it. I hated it, but I feel like people aren't aware of just how powerful they are as consumers. Because if nobody watches something, they will not make another thing of it. For the sole fact they won't make money. If anything, money trumps all. And if you watch a lot of something, no matter how good it is or how bad it is, they will make another one if they know they're going to get that return on investment. So my whole thing is when you see something, to your point, like a Black Star Wars, because it was something very similar to something like Black Panther, right? Where obviously the nerds went and saw it because it's Black Panther. But there were so many Black folks, old, young, or otherwise, who had no idea who T'Challa was. Almost similar to Iron Man, where they didn't know Black Panther wasn't an actual Panther Man. That went and saw that because they saw all Black cast, Black actors that they knew, they recognized, and they knew it was going to be Black as hell. Because then again, Kendrick Lamar was attached to the project as well too, so they had a soundtrack around it. I don't understand why you can't replicate. Like, it doesn't need to be a one-to-one replication as far as all Black everything, but having something being very Black centric and being done well, and just market right, because you can use marketing to an effective manner with and without money if you know what you're doing.
Well,
Yeah,
also, it wasn't
But
just.
after the second,
Go ahead.
like
What you said?
the second one, that's the reason why we won't see projects like that perpetually, because they're gonna, this didn't continue to, do outstanding world-breaking numbers. It must not be good, and now we have to reset. Now we don't even know when the next piece of Black Panther content is coming.
But it's still got a third movie out of that, though. And I think a lot of the difficulty out of
Well,
that was just with
I'm not sure
Chadwick
the third
being sick,
movie.
though.
Yeah, I'm not sure when the third movie is coming out. I hope there will be a third movie. I'm not sure about that.
Oh,
But I
I'm
think
tripping. I don't know why in my head does. Yeah, my bad. Go ahead.
you've had a long day, brother. You've had a long day. Your beard looks
Yeah.
good. Your beard looks good.
Appreciate it.
But the thing is, though, is like with Black Panther, it wasn't just us that came out there to see it, because it was part of the MCU beast at the time, at the height of its power, essentially. A lot of white folks went out there to see it. Not just that. Like I said, y'all know I teach. So many of the kids I teach, they love T'Challa. They love Black Panther. I mean, white kids, Asian kids. He transcended it. Similar to Miles Morales in the Spider-Verse films. It wasn't just us that went out there to see that. We of course did show up, but it definitely wasn't just us. It 100% wasn't just us. It was a lot of it went beyond just us. So I think that's the thing too, is that it's finding a way to be true to us, of course, but then also be inviting. I know y'all talked about it before on another podcast. Gatekeeping is poison. There's no reason to gatekeep people from seeing something that's good. Why would you do that? You want to be as welcoming as possible to other people. I understand that. So it's being able to, yes, be true to your own voice or your own message 100%, but finding a way to make it somewhat accessible to those who may not know that journey too.
To a point, I agree with your statement on the Black Panther thing, but to a same degree, when I look at something like Black Wall Street, even somebody you mentioned earlier in Tyler Perry, where they had mass success by creating this product and marketing this product to their niche, to their base being Black people. I feel like you can do that and have people be inclusive and be a part of that without making them a part of the marketing. I feel like you don't have to have, like, let's say if you wanted to make an all Black story, you don't have to have white characters in it or white characters around it to make it enticing for other people to watch it. If it's good, people want to be a part of it no matter the culture. And you see that a lot with somebody like a Tyler Perry, who did his plays and it was marketed towards Black people, made a lot of money through Black people supporting that, went to making the movies went well because Black people supported that, and then all the way up until the point where he's buying his own studio and doing his own thing continuously, where throughout all that time there were white people that watched that content and were a part of that conversation, especially in the South. I know white women in the South love Tyler Perry. He is like,
they love him.
He's
more
like
than
Wayne Brady
content.
with Southern white women.
They love him more than the content. But again, even with that though, look at the stakes. A Marvel movie costing for Black Panther, right? Black Panther 2, costing several hundreds of millions of dollars compared to Tyler Perry stuff, which cost $10 million, $15 million. The return
everything doesn't have to be on that level. Like, you don't need that amount.
No, but that's what I'm saying is that if you're trying to attract, Tyler Perry can find success, certainly in the horror genre. When you have lower budgets, you can have lower returns and still be very successful. You can aim your focus onto onto a certain demographic and find success. Tyler Perry shows like Meet the Browns, all that kind of stuff. Those shows are pretty much always on BET. They're not, or TBS sometimes, but they're not trying to have wide appeal. They're trying to be a 4-quadrant show. They're trying to be that, and they're not that, and that's perfectly fine for them. Black Panther had to be a 4-quadrant, had to be bigger. It is an anomaly. It's an anomaly for a movie that's set in Wakanda, in a fictional part of Africa, to have be a 4-quadrant, massive $1 billion movie. I don't think there's ever been a $1 billion movie that's featured a predominantly Black cast in the history of time and space.
That was the first one.
Right. I don't think it just comes between the backing of it. And for me personally, I don't need it to be that. Because again, like something like a Has-Been Hotel, like I mentioned beforehand, not even Has-Been Hotel, that was Amazon funded, but like Hell of a Boss, that show was really good. I think the show it probably got a little better animation wise when Amazon was able to put a little bit of money behind it, but the writing of the show, the characters, that show was just as good to me before, after the big boost, the $1 million investment from Amazon Studio. I think that, or something, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Crypt TV. Crypt TV is a YouTube channel on YouTube where it's fun. It was created by, what studio was it? Oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of this. It was a horror studio essentially, and the owner's big thing was that he wanted to get young people back into horror, and he saw that YouTube was the really big vehicle for that. So he, not making really a lot of money off of it, funneled a lot of his money into a lot of these horror short films and put them out on YouTube, trying to get horror back in touch with the young fan base, which it did pretty well. I haven't watched a horror Crypt TV video in a while now, but at its peak, it was really doing really well, and had a lot of people invested in that.
Mm-hmm. In friend of the show, Eric Prochnow, who was I forgot a couple of the monsters, because he's a 6'7", he was one of the monsters in those shorts a few times. He's been on Thin and L a while ago. He was on here talking about that too. Yeah.
So yeah, you don't. So say all that. My whole big point is, I don't need it to be this huge Star Wars level, Harry Potter level money making thing. I just need the content. If I can get the content, and because you just need people to watch the content for the money and advertising wise and all that good stuff. But if you can, to your point, get a movie that costs like a couple million, you get that success back on that tier. Like to your point, you get a Tyler Perry level of success where you make that money back and some, to give you the ability to make another one, and people are watching that content and enjoying that content. Another example, something like a Dragon Ball Z Abridged, where that thing made cultural waves in the nerd space with the amount of people that to this day still watch it, still make references to it, and it didn't have this major backing. It was like 3 guys and a team within their team together who made that stuff. Just give me stuff like that.
They also had to do quite a bit of to do a bare bones project like that takes quite a bit of money still. Like animation in general is not cheap at all. So I mean, getting together the funding to do projects like that is a lot more difficult, especially when it's more Black centric, because like it's harder for us to get support for projects like that. Like, I mean, you might looking at like Hell of a Boss, right? Like to make a season of that is probably close to $100,000, right? Just to have $100,000 to just blow into a side project that you don't know is going to get a return. It's not a lot of people that have those resources on hand. You know what I'm saying?
It cost $100,000 to pay people to work on it. I did. What was that? It was a Dragon Ball like adaptation short that was really popular for a little bit. I know RDC reacted to it, where this guy did a world tournament style thing, but he did it in his animation as Dragon Ball. Right. And it was just him and like
it took him like 7 years to make it though.
Yeah, like I'm not saying you should undertake all that on your own, but if you, again, even with Dragon Ball Z Bridge, they crowdfunded for later portions of the show because they needed to live off. But when they first started that, it was just them. It was just them doing all that stuff, and they were editing everything themselves.
So I'm confused because you're saying earlier you said a Black Star Wars. What to get a Black?
I'm
Star
saying
Wars
we don't. I say we don't need that. I like if I could.
Earlier you did say you wanted a Black Star Wars to have to get a Black Star Wars funded essentially, and as we're saying, it would take a miracle to get. I mean, to get as Otis said, it's like that to get even a ham sandwich. It would take a lot for us.
No, not Ethan, but Otis mentioned Black Star Wars. I was more so discussing the whole point of getting more of these like well, hell, crowdfunded or getting more of these independent stories out, because we know at the end of the day, we know the studios won't do this stuff unless there's a huge demand for it. They see a direct revenue return from it.
Right.
So
It's a
that
business.
being the case, like I would love to see more Black people. I want personally, I want to see more stories like a Hell of a Boss, like a Dragon Ball Z Bridge that are Black centric. Like you see all these different success stories again in the framework of YouTube, I guess at least, where these guys who wanted to make a difference and wanted to create this stuff out of the fun of it did the thing, and people that were part of that community resonated with it, watched it, it blew up, and at this point now, those things are making a good bit of money now. Like Team 4 Star is making bank off of their thing now. Granted, they're not doing a bridge series anymore because they burnt out doing that for like a decade plus, but they're doing other content for their community still and are able to sustain their livelihoods off of that stuff. It's an investment and time investment, but even something as simple as this of like 3 Black nerds from the 3 different generational perspectives. We're doing this. We're not at this point, we're not making a single dime off of doing these podcasts, but we're providing this kind of content to a audience that either wants to feel heard or an audience that is interested in hearing what we have to say about it.
True.
And at some point, if we can make the money, cool. But we're providing the content. We're being the change that we want to see. And
True.
I would just love to see more of that from a I guess content perspective in regards to like short films, shows, whatever it is. Because like to Otis's point, animation is really expensive and just hard to do if you don't know how to do it. So it doesn't have to be animation. It could be horror. That's why I love horror so much, because you don't need a budget of anything to really make a great horror movie. If you're a decent editor, you have a decent story maker, and you know how to direct that stuff, you can make it without spending a single dime from an investor and just do it on your own.
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously you got to pay your talent. You got to pay the people involved with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Or they could just be volunteering to do this shit. Something like Paranormal Activity.
Yeah, yeah, people volunteer. That's a lot of time to do that kind of stuff. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like these things are very viable to do, especially in today's era. So I'm just like, I just want to please Black creators, people that have creative brains, please do this stuff. Please.
Well, I think one thing too, and this kind of dovetails nicely into the next topic before we dip out too, is like there's a line that Sister Sage has in The Boys, where she says, people keep saying, "Oh, I heard you're the smartest woman in the world." She goes, "I'm the smartest person in the world." It's like, yeah, as opposed to let's create great content. Let's create great black content. No, let's create great content. Y'all know I have a comic book line. I had one for over a decade. I'm never like, oh man, I gotta make the best black comic books for black people. No, I'm like, I gotta make the best comic books for people. Period. I think that needs to be kept in the conversation as well. Making sure you make good content. Don't worry about specifically making content for one demographic or gatekeeping it for your own people. Make sure that you're making good content. Make sure you do, of course, have your people in there involved with it. Yes, inclusive as hell, of course. But by all means, do not ever sell yourself short by only doing one type of thing for one type of people. That's all.
You got anything else to say about it? My bad. I know I went on a little bit of a rant there, but you got anything else to say about it?
I mean, I'm kind of towards the middle of you both. Like, I do think that there is a large campus of people that prefer watching content where they are directly represented. So having that present without necessarily being the sole thing of it, like if you're not like a black show, but you're a good show with black people showing the black experience. I think that is important to do. But like, you don't want to be just that either. But like, in terms of like actually, because like you mentioned doing that like completely volunteer, convincing enough people to volunteer to make a high level production is like mythology. Like that's so like I mean it's possible to do, but it is really hard, especially if you want it done in a timely manner and like I said, like at a quality that is comparable to what's on the mainstream market.
Yeah, think of it this way. I'm sorry to cut you off. Think of it this way: if you have to move, right? How hard is it to get to your friends to agree to help you move for free? It's exponentially harder to help them get them to make a movie for free.
Especially because it I mean, it's not like you can. if you have a team so good that you can make a whole movie start to scratch in one day, then like kudos to you. But usually, a production is going to take time. So getting X amount of people to consistently do a thing without a monetary benefit for months or weeks, that's difficult to do. Like
It's a lot. I've seen it a lot more than you would think. More so in horror specifically for that reason. It's a lot of actors that want to get their start, a lot of directors that want to do something. Because usually the common thing I see is like dudes with promise like, "Hey, bro, if you act in this scene for me in this movie, I'll buy you a meal, or I will do this." Like it's usually like really quid pro quo in how they go about getting that thing done. And again, there's a lot of horror examples of it, just because like they do it and then that thing happens to blow up, and then they get funding and get forced to do a second one back in the day with like Scream or something like that. But what was
even with that though, my friends just submitted their and got accepted to this big New York Film Festival and everything. They for a short film they did called Face Off. It's Face On. But I think it's 70 minutes or so it's still pretty good length. But for that they did do a bunch of crowdfunding. They knew they had a crew, they had a bunch of friends that wanted to help out, and they would be willing to work for as low as possible. But they still, because like Otis said, the time is required. They have to take off time from other things, and that costs money. So they couldn't do it for absolutely nothing. They did it for as low as they possibly could, but they still had to have something.
Right.
And of course, also, if you want to have higher quality does cost time too. If you want to rush something down and get it done in an afternoon, of course, I understand you can get that done as fast as possible. But again, we've covered this a lot. We've covered this ground, but yeah.
Yeah. You said you had another topic you wanted to get onto?
No. I mean, yeah. So it could dovetail into episode 1 of. I know y'all haven't seen the rest that much of The Boys, but have you had a chance? You watched some of The Boys season 4, right?
Yeah, I got a good chunk of the first episode knocked out. So I have, I guess, some thoughts on what I hope to see for the series and what I'm noticing so far that we can talk about. And obviously, we're gonna do like a full review and probably like a halfway point review once we get like half the episodes out. But you guys want to get into a little bit of conversation on the first episode before we get up out of here?
All I wanted to say was just like my favorite character in the show is basically Lelouch. Lelouch is in the show. If y'all saw the first episode, it's like the world's smartest person. It's like that's from her introduction. Spoiler alert! It's a female. I was like, oh, that's Lelouch. That's Lelouch. The way she does things, the machinations, and you'll see it throughout the episodes. Other 3 episodes, like yeah, she's clearly smartest person. I mean, she makes some mistakes, of course, but she's very much like at least 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody else around her.
I think I wanted to put a little shine on, I guess, something to be looking forward to and looking at closely throughout the season is the relationship between Homelander and Billy Butcher. We've seen them have a very unique relationship in the past that I think initially a lot of people thought it was just like on-site kill order with Homelander where they just hate each other that much. But there's starting to become, and it started a little bit of the last season as well, was a little bit more depth in that relationship. Because in the first episode, you see Homelander like pull up on Butcher in the kitchen talking to his son. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, Homelander about to just end this right now. It's just so easy for him to do it. And he notices that Billy has, I guess, a mass in his brain, which essentially is brain cancer. And he's like, you got what, like 6 months left? And it's this whole thing where like, he won't give him what he wants. Because I feel like in Butcher's mind, he just wants like scorched earth and to fight and kill Homelander and do everything else. But Homelander is such a sadistic person, and also they're playing that game of like, yeah, I know you want to fight me. I'm not going to give you what you want because it's going to kill you and drive you crazy that you can't have what you want.
Yeah.
And I love that level of depth there because you still get the hate that they have for one another in the dialogue and interactions they have, but it's not just chitty chitty bang bang, everybody gonna die that you would normally see in like previous iterations of the show and the interactions they've had. It's really more in depth now. And
they do expand on that even in the next 3 episodes because the thing is, it can't be that. That's why I like the show more than the comic book because Butcher has to think how to deal with him. He can't just outright punch him. He has to try to.
If Homelander is killed off, so are their ratings.
I would say that because I look at the comic and how I know, at least from what I've seen, a lot of people's like favorite parts of the comic were the end after Homelander had already been murdered by evil Black Noir Homelander, because the narrative of the villain switches from him to Billy Butcher, which I don't feel bad about that spoiler because I don't know if they're going to actually do that because they changed some stuff now.
But do you think they'll work for the show? I don't.
I think it would. I mean, obviously, I don't think they'll go that 100% direct route. I can see it in how Billy's moving now and how he's getting more and more radical in how he's seeing Soups. So seeing him go full like murder all Soups, and you need I almost call him Stewie, was Dewey to take him out, and the rest of the boys to take him out. I think if they did it right, I think that could be a good way to end it. I don't know how long that would be able to last. Like, I don't think it goes a full season. I think maybe that's like a 3 episode or maybe half the season thing where once Homelander dies, cool, let's start to wrap this up and we can crescendo that with Billy being the villain and ending it off there. I don't think you have to have Homelander to the very, very end of the show to make
Yeah,
it
I see. I see.
impactful.
I see what you're saying. That could work. It could work. It's kind of like the same thing as how long the coup de grace. The coup de grace in a lot of ways has been built up with having Homelander is the big is the zenith, the peak of all the strife. Once he's gone, so many plans have evolved around taking him down. Once he's gone, it's kind of like what are they living for? What's the point? So if you're saying that pretty much Butcher is now the new heel, he's the new big bad, and all the rest of them are trying to do everything they can to take down Butcher. It could be compelling. It definitely could be. You know, I don't, and I think it would have to be short. It couldn't be a long arc. It had to be much shorter than that. I think it's kind of what they could have done. They could have or should have done with season 8 of Game of Thrones, where let's say we do get rid of the Lannister, so to speak, and now we have an even bigger, worse bad with Khaleesi. And it didn't do that. That didn't happen. So yeah, it could be that regard. Yeah,
and I think the difference there too is that felt so rushed. The Butcher thing will feel earned because you're seeing him actively be more and more radical as the show goes on, in the way he operates, his thought process, the way he has no regard for his own life now, and how he's treating other people last season. I think even to start the first episode, there's a thing of like he's kind of trying to go off plan a little bit and like go in and infiltrate with the rest of the team. And Buddy is like, Mother's Milk is like, hey, if he gets on that elevator, break his fucking arm. We're not doing this. You're not breaking plan. Yeah. And you saw how much they like ate him up to not be able to do what he wanted to do in this scorched earth.
Yeah, and you do see more in the next few episodes what his intentions are and how he is kind of like you said. He knows he has very limited half shelf life essentially. So he's like, yeah, I got to do something. And think about it. Think about how desperate you are when you know you have nothing to lose. Really, it's like yeah. So I could see it. I could see it working, but it would have to be end game stuff. It couldn't be like that's a whole season and a half. It's like this is like the last, like you said, last few episodes or so.
And I feel like that may be the route they're going down. If you're looking at how they're again back to the Homelander stuff, where it's like they're trying to like keep him around longer and not just murder him off or kill him off. But
yeah, well, what I hope they don't do is go where they have it where Butcher uses some more V to get some kind of help him out or what have you, and it's then taking down another guy with V. It's like the same thing because he just changed face on it. Another V guy. He's like, no, do something else.
You anything you're looking forward to, Lelouch?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a interesting way to end it. I think for him to do that, like Butcher would have to somehow amass power, and I don't mean like V power, but like power within the scope of the world of what he can do and influence. Maybe not like physical destruction or output, but if you put him in like in a position where like maybe he's running Vought somehow, and you have to take down like his version of the Seven and the rest of Vought, that might work. But Homelander is the best character in the series. It's hard to recover from losing your best character.
Yeah, most shows can't do that. I know y'all aren't a fan of The Office, but back in the day, Walking Dead once they lost Rick, The Office once they lost their star Steve Carell.
Before Rick, when they lost Glenn.
Even though Glenn wasn't the lead, I mean they lost him. He was still a fan fave character. It's hard to recover. It's not impossible. It's not impossible, but it is hard to. I think you're right though, Charlie. It could work if it's like, let's say, the last season. It's like the third to the last episode, and the way he does it is pretty dark, and the rest of the team's like, we gotta stop him, and it's much more like kind of like how do we outmaneuver the guy who kind of trained all of us, the guy who's willing to do go that much further than we are essentially.
And I think the dope thing about it too, how they ended it was like as Yui was like trying to track him down, he was reading his like journal about like he had a personal diary or a journal, and you got to see now again it didn't need to be a 1-to-1 thing in the show, but you got to see more of like where his mind was at certain moments of the show, and you saw that that veering off into radical activities and approaches in the series up until that point.
Well, because I've only read a
really
little
good
of the
stuff.
comic, but he was from the beginning in the comic, he was a monster. He was much worse already in the comic.
Yeah.
Which I started
They
reading.
saved it because that, like, for me, when they revealed that Homelander or the guy that did, like, they pretty much said, yeah, Homelander, he didn't do any of that evil shit. It was Black Noir.
It looks just like, yeah, it's spoiler, but that's
like, it was
yeah,
literally
that's
an evil
very
clone
different,
that did
yeah.
all this fucked up shit. And Homelander's like, bro, why do you hate me so much? I didn't do anything besides be an asshole.
Yeah,
And that was just
That's a
so
completely different
outrageous. So
scenario.
like the Butcher Diaries at the end kind of saved it as far as like a sticking a landing. But yeah, we shall see how it goes. I'm excited to get into these other 2 episodes and seeing where this show goes for this season, because we have a lot of content to cover. You guys will be seeing a lot of content here in the Dinner Podcast between this, the anime that's already going, House of the Dragon coming in a day or in a couple days. There's a lot of content for us to discuss, a lot of good, at least hopefully good content for us to discuss. So you guys can find all our thoughts here at the Then and Now Podcast. So we appreciate you guys for watching and tuning in, and we will see you guys next. Well, before we leave, you guys want to shout out any of our associates or counterparts before we get up out of here?
Yes. For those who are wondering, who've seen Demon Slayer, they did base Tanjiro's shirtless body off of Charlie. He doesn't have many scars, but that's pretty much the delts.
I got a lot of scars. I go, dude.
Some of the scars. Yeah.
You know, I got these scars.
But seriously, man, seriously, please crowdfund Martian Blueberry making season 2. Promise Neverland. Let's get it going now. Let's get it going today, right now.
That'd be my personal goal too, as far as getting them crowdfunded. Somebody, again, we talked about getting these Black stories told. These are somebody that we know can do it at least do animation specifically at a certain quality and write at a certain quality. Let's get these guys some support and see what they can make in regards to like a full-length series, because that would be dope to see what they can do.
Because they're clearly doing this with, and I mean, no offense to someone, but it's a much lower budget than someone that's in like Studio Madhouse or Studio Map, whatever. I mean, like, imagine if they actually had you've seen them before with Boondocks. That's the most resources they probably had. Giving them real resources to do something, they could go ham. You go super ham.
Lelouch, you got anything to shout out?
Yeah, check out word.com. Got plenty of content going up there regularly. If you're going to WordCon or DreamCon, we will be there and sponsoring both. So come give us a shout out. Come to the booth, get you some merch. Check out. Actually, that's it for now. We got some numbers coming.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. My bad. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Charlie. My bad.
Go ahead. Finish what you saying.
No, you finish your stuff. I apologize.
I got a lot of shit though. Well, not
I was saying was I found out some of my former students had found this channel after watching my content, and it kind of blew up my it blew up my it turned out in the school they teach at, typically students about 10 to 15 kids sign up per class. They want to choose it, and mine had like over 30 that chose my class. They've been watching these videos. So if you're a student at my school and they watch these videos, thank you so much. I probably said a few words I probably should have said for my students, but
you just said some stuff.
I said a lot of stuff. I said a lot of stuff, but even regardless, I appreciate y'all. You must well watch, man. I appreciate it very much.
Hey man, Then and Now Podcast is for the children, man. We're here for the children. No Diddy.
I need to.
No Diddy. No Diddy.
But I need to. Yeah, but thanks.
On my end, again, shout out to the guys over at Blurred Lines Media. Shout out to my guys over at Tappin' No Cappin'. These are guys that create dope content. I've been in overwhelming amount of the content for both of those guys. Those separate entities. They do good stuff, gaming wise and content creation wise. Check them out. And for myself, in 2 weeks will be having one of my new magnum opus in regards to Disney Power Rangers era video. Spent a lot of time getting that video done and a lot of money getting that video done. So it'll be something that hopefully will be really dope and high quality that you guys will enjoy. So be on the lookout for that. Besides that, again, this has been Captain Diesel, Lelouch V, and King of the Comics of the Then and Now Podcast, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.
Can you have more than one magnum opus?
I can. 'Cause I'm that nigga.
Fair.